We're really going deep on this one.
Lay it on me.
So we're talking about Shakira Lewis.
Shakira Lewis. Okay.
Yeah. And, she was only 27 years old when she was murdered.
Oh, wow. That's young.
Way too young.
What do we know about her?
So she was this aspiring chef, right? Totally beloved in her community. Everyone said she was like the heart and soul of, her little corner of city-state.
Yeah, it sounds like she had a lot going for her.
She really did. And she was a single mom.
Oh, man, that makes it even worse.
It really does.
So what happened? When did this all go down?
So it was in 2020, right?
Yeah.
And her younger sister is actually the one who found her.
Oh, God, I can't even imagine.
Just awful. And the police reports, they painted a picture of just a brutal scene.
Yeah, like what are we talking about here?
Signs of a huge struggle all over the apartment.
Oh, jeez.
And Shakira, she died from blunt force trauma to the head.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Do they know it was used? Like the murder weapon, I mean.
Yeah, so they actually found a hammer right there at the scene.
A hammer? Wow.
I know, chilling, right?
Yeah. So, whenever you've got that level of violence, it usually means it's personal, right? Like this wasn't some random act.
That's what the investigators thought too, right? They're like, this is fueled by something strong. Rage, maybe?
Exactly.
So they start looking at people Shakira knew, and almost immediately this one person kind of jumps out at them, her ex-boyfriend.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so they'd broken up pretty recently, and get this, he actually had a history of domestic violence.
That's never a good sign.
Not at all. So, of course, the police are thinking, bingo, we got our guy.
Right.
But this is where the forensics get really interesting.
I love the forensic stuff. Lay it on me.
So naturally, they find DNA evidence at the scene.
Well, yeah, you'd expect that.
Right. But it's a mixture of Shakira's DNA, and then there's this unknown male profile, too.
Okay, so that kind of points to the ex, right?
Right, you would think so, but it's not always that simple.
How so?
Well, imagine, you've got two sets of fingerprints, but they're all smudged together, right? Like, that's kind of what a DNA mixture could be like.
Gotcha. So it makes it harder to tell who's who.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
especially, back then, the techniques weren't as sophisticated as they are now.
That makes sense.
And then on top of that, you have to worry about contamination. Even the tiniest little trace of, some random person's DNA can mess everything up.
So even with the DNA, it's not a slam dunk.
Nope, not at all. And there's another wrinkle, and this is a big one.
Like what?
Remember that hammer we talked about?
Yeah, the murder weapon.
Well, the fingerprints on it, they didn't match the ex-boyfriend's at all.
Whoa. So if it wasn't him, then who?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Were there any other leads at all?
So there were a few neighbors who had heard arguing that night, like really loud arguing,
Okay.
and a woman screaming. And one neighbor even reported seeing a man running away from Shakira's building.
But you know how eyewitness testimony can be, right?
Oh, tell me about it. I love true crime stuff, and I'm always reading about how unreliable eyewitness accounts can be.
Yeah, people's memories are so fragile.
Yeah.
Especially in those high-stress moments, like when you've just witnessed something terrifying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You just can't always be sure. And without something else, like security footage or a really solid ID, those witness statements, they just don't carry as much weight.
You got it.
Ugh, it's so frustrating. All these little clues, but they just don't quite connect.
And in the meantime, Shakira's family is just left with this horrible loss.
And her daughter, it's just unthinkable.
It really is. So what's happened since then?
Well, her family has been amazing. They've been so strong. They're raising her daughter, and they've been working with all these advocacy groups. They're holding vigils. They're doing everything they can to keep Shakira's memory alive and to keep pushing for answers.
That's so important.
It is, but, it's been years now, and the case is still open.
Really?
Yeah, the police are still working it. They're still following up on leads, and there's even a reward for information. But it just seems like that one key piece is still missing.
Yeah. You know what gets me about this case is that it really shows you just how complicated these investigations can be, like, in real life.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's not like on TV where everything gets wrapped up in an hour.
Exactly. It's messy, it's complicated, there are dead ends and false starts, and sometimes, even the best investigators hit a wall.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what it would take to finally bring Shakira's killer to justice.
That's a good question.
Is there someone out there, maybe even listening right now, who knows something they maybe think is insignificant, but could actually blow this whole thing wide open?
You never know, right? Sometimes the smallest detail, the thing you wouldn't even think twice about, can be the key.
Totally. Like maybe someone saw something odd that night, something that just seemed a little off, or maybe they overheard a conversation.
Anything, really.
Exactly. And even if you're not sure, even if you're like, that couldn't be important, it's still better to say something. Let the investigators decide.
Absolutely. You just never know. You might have that one piece of information that Shakira's family needs to finally get some peace.
Exactly, because they deserve it.
They really do.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. But if you have any information about the murder of Shakira Lewis, please contact your local authorities.
Every tip counts, no matter how small.
That's right.